Hello and welcome everyone to a new episode of PopCultX. My name is Gabriel. Your name is?
Me? Oh yeah, hi. I'm Daniel. Daniel, Danny, hey you, the other guy, whatever. I go by it all.
Go by many names. Lucifer,
Yes.
Satan. Oh wait, was I supposed to say that?
Not out loud.
Darn it, we were saving that for episode 6606. Cat's out of the bag.
Just a few episodes early, but it's okay.
So we got some exciting stuff to talk about this episode. We're going to go ahead and just jump right into it because it's a lot of exciting stuff. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I think that everyone's really talking about today is the release of, I think, the final trailer for Marvel's The Eternals.
Mm-hmm.
What are your
Absolutely.
thoughts? What do you think?
Okay, so last episode, I talked about how Marvel might be oversaturating the marketplace with all of their content, all of the Disney Plus shows, whatnot, but who cares about that anymore? My goodness, the Eternal trailer was just wow. The whole cast, seeing them in their element, I guess, in their costumes, and seeing them, some of the fight scenes, some of who they're going to be up against, it was just amazing. I was blown away by it. I wasn't expecting that because from what we've seen, in other media tones from Chloe Zhao's directorial style, but when they released that trailer, wow, it's going to be great when it comes out. What were your thoughts?
Just any doubt that I had in Chloe Zhao as a director, just of directing something within a Marvel Cinematic Universe, went out the window because I was slightly concerned because I'm like, okay, is this going to be like a serious movie? They're not going to be a lot of spectacle. The first glimpse of the Celestials looked amazing. The special effects, the visuals, I mean, it's definitely straight out of the comic books. All of the cast look amazing. I think each of them just shined in their own way. Of course, we had Salma Hayek as sort of the narrator, starting the new trailer out with explaining how, basically the plot to the movie. Thanos got rid of half of the world and then brought them back, and that's bringing back this new threat, that we're hearing about. I'm a huge fan of Salma Hayek, of course. So seeing her in another movie and like as one of the, I think like maybe even the first Mexican superhero, Latina superhero, we have Gamora, but she's not playing, like the Gamora character itself is not Latina, even though she's played by an Afro Latina. It's a little bit different. Here we have, well, I mean, I guess it's not because Salma Hayek's playing.
She's not from Earth.
Well, there went my excitement, but no, you know what I'm saying. Here we finally have like a Mexican actress playing a superhero and not covered in green makeup.
Okay,
and then,
there you go.
Yeah, my other actress that I stan is Angelina Jolie, who looks amazing. Any
is she
shot,
the leader of the Eternals?
So Salma Hayek is, I guess, if you could call it the leader, is like the head Eternal. Her character in the comic books is actually a man, and they switched gender for her to play it. Angelina Jolie's character is more of like a warrior, weapons expert. And so Angelina Jolie is definitely obviously going to play a huge role because she's, Hollywood A-list, and I hope that, everyone gets their own moment in the movie, but they looked amazing. Their costumes look great. They look comic book relevant, but not cheesy. They looked, everyone looked amazing. I mean, I'm so excited to see it now. Like it had a little bit of humor. It had the drama. It had the cool deviant villains that look really amazing. I can't wait. I literally cannot wait to watch it.
I'm so glad that they gave a little explanation as to why they didn't help out in any of the other wars, and like the war with Thanos and whatnot. So it gave a little bit, kind of answered some of those questions like, well, why didn't they do anything? So I'm glad that they put that to rest already, so we don't have to wait for the movie to come out to get that answered. So,
well, and isn't that like always the question when it comes to superhero movies? It's like they have to be like super focused on one threat at a time, because it's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, why is there hunger when Superman could just deliver food everywhere? Or, why is there any issues with violence when, Green Lantern could just come and say, like, so I mean, there is
Green Lantern.
right. He's actually one of like my least favorite characters. I don't know why I paused for such dramatic effect, but he's one of my least favorite characters.
He's one of my least favorite.
But so yeah, so anyway, that's always like a question that you kind of have to suspend your your disbelief in that universe, is that it's the threat in Spider-Man's little world, in his neighborhood. He's protecting his neighborhood, or
Right, right.
Metropolis, or Gotham, because obviously then it's like, it would be almost too realistic. Like, it would almost like, do we want to see a movie where Superman's ending hunger? Do we want to see him fighting Lex Luthor, or
Well, I want to see him with Jimmy Carter building houses.
for
Why
Habitat
not?
Humanity?
Exactly.
Jimmy Carter's like, oh, I'm almost done with one house, and Superman's, oh, cool, I built 500.
Or
And
get
Wonder
Lex.
Woman's like, oh, really? I built 600.
And Batman or Bruce Wayne's like, I bought 1,000.
Exactly.
But it
So
looks
yeah,
great.
it does look great. I think the Twitterverse, Instagram, the nerd community, everyone's excited. Um, I really haven't seen anything negative about it. Everyone's just super stoked. One of the things that I really love about it, and I've talked, pretty ad nauseum about it, is the diversity in the cast. That you have a gay character, you have African American, Mexican, you have a hearing impaired person, you have like it's so like, it's so easy for them to be able to include so many different people and get so many people excited. And I did see someone's tweet today that I follow, and is like a fellow like gay person of color, comic book nerd, and he's like, I finally get to see me in a movie.
Oh,
And he's
wow.
referring to the black actor that's portraying I think a gay character. And I thought, like, how cool is that, like, that he can say that, like, and he's excited to see someone that looks like him, that has some of the same characteristics as he does. And I just, that excites me. I'm just so excited that Mexican kids can go see it, and Salma Hayek will be in it, and uh you know all 50 of Angelina Jolie's kids will see it and be excited to see their mom. So a lot of excited people, right?
Right, right. I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
And it is very diverse, the cast, and I think that's gonna help it a lot. Another thing, not to get off tangent with the Eternals, but there was a movie that came out on called CODA, Children of Deaf Adults,
Hmm.
and it looks fantastic. It's on my list of something to watch. So
Yeah.
it's the premise of it is there's the two adults are deaf, their one child is hearing, and she finds out that she's a talented singer.
Hmm.
So goes through like this training program to get apply to like a prestigious music school. But she's torn between leaving her family behind who need her because the government's cracking down on like their shrimping boat where they have to have a hearing person on board in order to operate it, or to follow her dreams. So it looks really interesting. I can't wait to watch that one.
Yeah, it sounds really great. I've been fortunate enough to actually meet or a lot of people, and make a lot of friends that are no sign language, and that's their mode of communication. And at first it was interesting, because obviously I don't know sign language, or not obviously, but I don't know sign language. And so we would talk using text, or notes on iPhones. And then it quickly became like our norm. And it was just like, yeah, that's how we talk. And it was just really interesting to see their community in San Diego, to have like a bunch of guys that sign, and they're very close. And it's a interesting subject matter that I think that we don't really get to see a lot about, because we are privileged that we live in, we're hearing, and we live in
Yeah.
in our own world. And it's kind of cool to see that there, would be a show. I just saw an interview with Marlee Matlin, who's I think the first and maybe only person to win an Academy Award in like a leading role that is hearing impaired. And she's such a great actress, and I think such a kind person. The interesting thing that I heard about her is that when she won the Academy Award, she was going through a really tough time with alcoholism.
Oh wow.
And believe it or not, Henry Winkler and his wife invited her over to their house, and they were friends, and said, come over and stay at our house. A year later, she lived with him. So Henry Winkler
Wow.
and his wife
Nice.
pretty much like, took care of her and were there as a support system for her. And like pretty much like unknowingly to everyone, I think this is the first time I've ever hearing Marlee Matlin share that story. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like Henry Winkler is awesome. Like he's an icon, but he does give off that vibe of someone that would be like a good dad, like dad vibes. And it was funny because when Marlee Matlin said the day that she told them that they were going to leave, Henry Winkler's wife, and forgive me for not knowing her name, but she said, Marlee, what did we do wrong? Like, why are you leaving? And I thought that was so sweet. Like that she, like they didn't even want her to leave. They wanted her to stay.
Right.
And Marlee was like, I have to grow up. Like I have to go out and get my own place. And she was a young woman, but like she was very grateful for them, and she credits them for being her support system. But I thought that was a great story about, Henry Winkler, Hollywood star, being a good person.
Hollywood star and good person, huh?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And I think he's also Jewish, just like you.
Yeah. I'm supposed to relate to him now. I always go around hitting things going, hey, and it works, right? So
yeah,
why not?
I thought that was Yiddish. Hey, no.
No.
Oh wait, that's oy vey.
Oy vey, yes, there you go.
It is kind of similar, but
let me break out my Yiddish to Hebrew, which I know neither. So
there, where I've learned some Yiddish is from watching Judge Judy. Like she, every once in a while, she'll break out with like this like Yiddish saying, and then she looks at people like, why don't you know what I'm saying? Like, are you stupid? I'm like, oh, because not everyone speaks Yiddish, Judge. Like, but I love it.
That's funny. Why don't you know what I'm talking about? Come on.
Yeah. The other thing that I'm really excited about, I know you are too, because we already dealt with a special portion of our podcast earlier today, but saw fantastic movie last night on Netflix, The Paper Tigers.
Oh, you finally watched it.
Surprise. Yeah. So I finally took your recommendation, and for our listeners, for those who haven't actually watched the movie The Paper Tigers, I'll go ahead and share with you a little bit of a recap, or not a recap, but basically essentially the plot of the movie. So you have three friends that are trained under a kung fu master, and they're referred to as the Paper Tigers. They're really
the three tigers.
Oh,
initially,
yeah, three cards, yeah, and the plot happens to some things happen, and they come together 30 years later. Middle-aged men, some of them out of shape, some of them forgetting their kung fu ways, some of them a little injured and worse for wear, and the plot kind of goes from there. And that's what initially attracted me to the movie, is that I saw that it was guys that are in their 40s and are not exactly the most fit anymore, and I immediately related to them because I'm like, oh, that's my demographic, that's my age group. And spoiler alert, they still kick ass, they're still badass in the movie. And that's what I loved, is that it shows that us Gen Xers can still kick ass when we need to. And overall, it's a great movie. And what were your thoughts about the movie, Danny?
Oh, like I shared last episode, it's fantastic. I think like you said, it really shows, and I think the heart of the movie is that it's never too late to maybe recapture your goals that you once had, or recapture your passion that maybe along the way you have lost or lost sight of. So I think that, as that being the central core of the movie, they surrounded it with fantastic martial arts, some
Mhm.
humor, and it made it into a great movie that can reach all generations.
Yeah. And the acting and the cast were really great.
Yeah.
I think they all did a great job. All the lead cast. Some of the standouts for me was Ron Yuan. Sorry if I'm
Hmm.
mispronouncing that, but he played Hing, and he's one of the three tigers, and he's gained a little bit of weight. He's a little chubby, a little thick, and he has a knee injury, and he may have lost some of his hair, but he's out there proving that guys that are a little thicker can still kick butt. He's one of the tigers that I think learned from their master more of the medicinal
Hmm.
healing
Hmm.
factors. So
Yeah,
that
right,
makes him
right.
a little bit cooler, is that he has that medicinal background and in alternative medicine, which is another cool thing that happens throughout the plot of the movie. Um, One of the other characters that I really liked in the movie was the character named Carter,
Oh
played
yeah.
by Matthew Page. His physical faces and his physical comedy was making me laugh so much. There's a
He was
portion of the film,
fantastic.
as you
Yeah.
can remember, where he's like doing different, like the cobra, the fighting monkey, the pan. Like it was just, I mean, those aren't the real things because I'm not a kung fu guy, but you can imagine, like it was just it. But he did it with like such seriousness, but like it was so funny, and like the faces that he was making, it was just cracking me up. Like it was hilarious. I just thought he was so funny that he's was a really great physical comedian.
Well, I think his character, and yes, he was great. He was fantastic, and Matthew Page played that perfectly. I think he also played it perfectly. Whereas, okay, so maybe his character was meant to be a jerk later on in
Yeah.
life, but that aside, the fact that he stuck with it from his youth and stuck with the art, the martial art, the kung fu, and was able to progress from where he was just a kid who got pushed around, beat around when he always tried
Mhm.
to spar the three tigers, but and to get to where he was at toward the in the latter half of the movie, it just really speaks to perseverance and to
Mhm.
really sticking true to maybe what you love, no matter how hard it is. So yeah, I thought he
Yeah.
did that really well.
And I think that our last podcast we talked about like cultural appropriation, or people having a passion for something that
Hmm.
maybe they're not originally part of that culture, and him being a Caucasian person and being in the kung fu or martial arts realm. I think the characters who are Asian American and one's African American, I think that might be part of their internal dialogue, is like, who's this white guy that like thinks that
Right.
he's a kung fu master, and it's kind of a joke. And though, but with his perseverance and his reverence for martial arts and for his master, and for that craft, or that artistry, they sort of be, not to spoil anything, but like start to respect him, because it goes beyond like, oh, this is a guy that's trying to like you know be like a culture vulture and like pick something
Culture
that's
vulture.
cool out of their culture, to
Hmm.
someone like, oh, clearly like he's dedicated his life and respects it. And then it's like, okay, like you proved yourself, like you're a good guy, like you're, I mean, not a good guy in sense of like hero villain, but like a good guy as in like you're actually respect what you're learning and have reverence for it. And that's cool. Like it kind of goes to our conversation where it's like people can smell authenticity
Yeah.
within
Hmm.
people, and know whether or not they're truly want to be part of something for the right reasons, versus just trying to kind of steal something from someone else's culture. So it's kind of an
Definitely.
interesting sort of subplot point, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the director, Bao Tran, really pulled it all in together, all those different points that we were talking about just now. And I know it's a project that he had been working on for like 10 years, from starting the script to finally wrapping filming. And now they're on like their call it a press circuit in a way, but
Mhm.
we're lucky here at PopCultX because we actually got to get into that press circuit and we got to chat with Bao Tran today. So we're gonna go ahead and we're just gonna share this conversation with you all, and we really hope you enjoy it. So let's roll the film. Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special episode of Little Talks with PopCultX. I'm your co-host Daniel, along with Gabriel. We are very excited to welcome the writer, director of the action comedy movie, I'll say of the year so far, Paper Tigers. Welcome Bao Tran to the show. Hello, Bao. Welcome.
Hello, thanks for having me.
It's very awesome to have you on the show. Now, before I get too much into the movie part of it, I just want to say that I'm a huge fan of your work. I went back and I watched Bookie last night. I saw clips of The Challenger, and it's just your style that you bring to the screen is so it's so real and authentic, and I appreciate that. It's not like fantasy side. It's really, I can feel the grit of it. So, with that being said, where do you get your inspiration and style from?
Wow, that's a big question, and thank you so much for your kind words. I don't know. I guess I'm trying kind of a bit of a chop suey dish here.
Okay.
I grew up watching kind of like entertainment from all different types of cultures. I'm the first of my family to be born here in the U.S. as a Vietnamese American. So I kind of grew up in this kind of bicultural household, which meant different types of food at home, and then food, hamburger and pizzas, outside. And
Right.
it's kind of the same thing with entertainment. We had like we go to Chinatown and get the video store and get latest movies and TV shows, from Asia, TVB and Hong Kong movies and all that
Mhm.
stuff. So we, devour all that stuff, binge watch, 30, 40 VHS tapes, in a single clip and watch that. And then meanwhile, go out to the theaters and watch Spielberg and James Cameron and,
Nice.
just really loving, you know, Hollywood movies as a whole. And obviously, comic books are a huge inspiration. Just kind of reading again two different types of forms. Manga as an early age, and then American comic books. In your 7-Eleven before you get kicked out. But yeah, I mean that's all. That's kind of my childhood experience with stories and images and color too. I just remember my child being really colorful of just all different types of uses of palettes and whatnot. So yeah, so it's a hard thing to say. I just love and am inspired by just stories from all over, and especially comedies and humor is so interesting. See how it
Mhm.
plays so differently across cultures and different age groups as well. That's such a fascinating thing to kind of explore and figure out what that is. But like you said, Bookie is a noir piece, so
Right.
just spanning across different type of genres and really just loving stories in general.
Awesome. Awesome. Would you say that your parents as immigrants, their story, and then in turn, your life as a child of an immigrant has really shaped your storytelling style then?
Yeah, I think in a whole sense, I think it's very how would you say? I've learned to have my feet on the ground, it's like
Hmm.
maybe it's kind of a bit of a blue collar art, and just really appreciate, what, my family appreciated around the campfire, just around the TV, and just
Hmm.
appreciate that. So I'm not really I didn't grow up to fine culture, we're very salt of the earth people. And so that's what I really appreciate, and just stuff that really can appeal to everyone. And I'm really attentive to maybe there's a way to answer the question. I'm attentive to the type of stuff, trying to tell stories in movies that my family and my parents and the old generation can understand, and also the younger kids can
Right.
understand and
Right.
appreciate. So and it doesn't have to be meaning like a safe, child friendly family film in that sense, but just
Right.
something storytelling that's accessible, that's real, that's something that people can just relate to.
Right on.
And about one of the things that I noticed while watching your film was that the movie is very diverse with the characters that are portrayed. You have an African American, Caucasian, Asian Americans, etc. Was that something that you set to do before making the movie? Is that you wanted something that represented the mixture of a lot of different cultures and show that brotherhood that so many of us actually have in the United States of friends that are from different backgrounds?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you have I guess how would you say, a minority perspective, we all kind of band together and have share notes and compare experiences because we're kind of on the fringes and we're a bit of an outsider situation. So that is always definitely in the DNA of all the work that I do, Bookie as well. And just really understanding what it means to kind of be on the I guess on the fringes, even though now we're being a little bit more accepted in the mainstream culture, but always feel a little bit on the outside. And I think that's fine. And it's a way of kind of seeing the world and seeing how people interact with each other. And so that's really important as well, that we wanted to have, how we kind of ban, how we talk about white people when white people aren't around. No offense, but it's, there's kind of like that type of vibe, which is always fun and interesting to me. Oh, you won't hear it. So, but yeah, it's that type of energy that's always fun and entertaining because you almost like you kind of let your hair down. You don't have to behave. You don't have to be a model minority. So those are really rich stories. I think they're really interesting. And one of the kind of the key things from the outset was that like we didn't want anyone speaking accents. It was just us speaking the way we normally speak and the way we grew up and having our friends that we knew each other. And then just kind of on that historical aspect, for Kung Fu culture, this movie set in Seattle. I'm from Seattle. It's it's also kind of a loving tribute to Bruce Lee's contribution here in Seattle, because when he first came to the States, he came to Seattle and went to school here. He opened up his Kung Fu school. He met his wife here. He had students that were all broad stripes and colors, and that still continue to teach to this day. So that's the type of legacy of history that we still live under, and we kind of like reap the rewards of that.
Right. Absolutely. I also got a sense that you're a big, maybe a hip hop fan, that hip hop culture is heavily influenced in this movie, that you have people talking with sort of like a hip hop swag, the hip hop beats that are part of the soundtrack. Are you like hip hop music fan? And was that something that you incorporated, into your film as a fan of that genre of music?
Yeah, I think it's, again, kind of speaking to what we're talking about, kind of the appreciation of each other's cultures, especially Black culture and Black music. That's, Asians and Blacks, kind of came together, and culturally, at least speaking, really, really close, in terms of the influence of hip hop, R&B, and, that's a lot of stuff that I grew up and listening and appreciating. And so, yeah, that's kind of the backdrop to kind of like set the pace for these guys kind of coming together in that world, also sets them in that time as well. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. It's always it's kind of like in the DNA of the things that I look for music. And I always kind of tell my composer that I want something that's a little more bump in the trunk, so a little bit more, a little, just like, because it's like percussion and just like really rhythm based, whereas a lot of maybe Western scores are a little bit more from the melody or point of view, but like I wanted like something that drove, that you could always just feel there was a rhythm to it. So.
Nice.
As you were also the writer and director of Paper Tigers, so what process or creative process do you prefer, the writing of it, or maybe even more so the directing of the movie?
I heard it was it Billy Wilder saying, he's like, when I'm writing, I'd rather be directing. When I'm directing, I'd rather be writing.
Yeah.
Because you just see the things that, I should have fixed this, or, I should be doing this instead. Yeah, for me, I grew up, kind of learning self-taught filmmaking. And at that time, Robert Rodriguez, was like this huge influence. And so the whole ethos is just guerrilla filmmaking, grabbing a camera, learning how to do everything right, direct, and edit. And so I kind of did that path. And so the whole thing of like division of labor, where it's once you start getting into credits and all this stuff, where it's like a little bit more, developed types of films, like I never really understood those kind of layers of really division, because I think it's really one piece, and when I'm writing, I'm already thinking about editing. You're editing, you are sculpting the writing and the dialogue. You're deciding what dialogue goes in and goes out. And there's also, the thing with ADR is that you can bring in actors later to loop in additional lines. So you're always kind of thinking about that as well. So yeah, it's all of a piece to me, and maybe that's kind of that has really helped me, on set, in terms of figuring out what I want and what the things that we need or we don't need. I can kind of make those quick editorial decisions or writing decisions as you go. So, and maybe actors argue with you less when they know you wrote the script. So.
That's true. That's true. So you've done a lot of, this is your first feature film. So you've done a lot of short films before this. How much did you draw on that experience from short films and bring it into the feature film world?
Yeah, so this is the first feature film that I've directed. I've edited feature films before. I was working out in Vietnam for a while, and I was cutting features from some other directors. So I learned a lot just from that process, and learning the other side of the coin. Like I said before, I kind of learned how to do it all as one piece. But the other one, those experiences taught me kind of like, this is my lane. Stay in the lane. What does the director want? What my job is to kind of help execute for what the director wants. So that kind of helped me appreciate, that collaborative aspect as well. And then, all those experiences coming together into Paper Tigers certainly was all helpful. Yeah, I think it's all storytelling in a lot of ways. Honestly, I think shorts are really actually harder to make than features. Features are hard to make, logistically, and it's just this big train and so many moving parts. But with short, from a story point of view, the audience is a lot less forgiving. Like your short has to be really, tight as far as like what you're showing to the audience, because they'll drift, they'll wander, like they'll question why things are there, because they only have about 10 whatever minutes to do it. Whereas a feature, there's a little bit more forgiveness. It's like, okay, some scenes going to be a little bit slower or whatnot. So it's interesting to kind of watch how kind of time is elastic between short and features. I think shorts are very, very hard to make and do well. And I really appreciate great short filmmakers and short films from that point of view. But when you go into the features, it's a little bit like kind of like how do you eat an elephant, bite by bite. So it's the same thing. Like each act and each piece is like a short film. Every little and maybe 10-minute sequence is kind of a short film within a feature. So you can think about it from that point of view. It certainly helps.
Right on. Now, one question I just had, this is more specific about the casting. It's just something I noticed. So in the early part of Paper Tigers, we get the 90s montage, which I thought was really cool and really well executed and made it look like it was from that era, especially with the VHS, and you get that feel of it. But we see that the character of Danny, he's probably pretty big. He's pretty built. But then fast forward 30 years, he's a little bit more scrawny, a little bit more run down with life, which is what you were trying to tell with the story, I see. But then we get the reverse with his rival Carter. He's the scrawny kid at the beginning, and then he's really built. And you make a joke of that in the script itself, in the writing of how he mentions it. Now, was that something that when you did the casting that you wanted, or was that just something that just happened to be, that they had that reversal of their body statures?
Mm-hmm. I think for instance, like the clear reversal of statures, that definitely came through casting. There's certain things that I kind of wrote in the script just to show, how does a person go to pot? They either, gain weight, or they lose, they get emaciated, so there's all these different ways that you could kind of like spin that tale. But there's also the reality of indie film. You're not always going to get all the things that you can have on paper. And the reality is, that portion, that short, it's really a short film, the first 10 minutes of the younger heroes. We actually shot that like a year and a half before the rest of the shoot, because we were raising money and we were trying to figure out, how do we have a piece that we could help sizzle and, help sell as a proof of concept. So we shot that without knowing what the rest of the cast or the future cast was going to look like. Maybe a little continuity is Jim kind of changes skin tones a bit, but that's what happened, because we just didn't know like what our cast was going to be, and they were great, and we just kind of ran with it and used that footage. And so when we got to the point where we found Elaine, who played Danny, like he was slender, he was a great actor. He wasn't the physical stature wasn't who we had in mind, but it worked, right? He had this kind of this silver fox thing going on. He was very skinny or slimmer, and then we had Ron, who was already attached before as Hing, and he's a larger stature. And it's like, oh boom, that just already sold itself. Like you have kind of again people going to pot in different ways, and so it just worked out that it was complementary. And then also Matt is who plays Carter is just huge as it is, and he's much bigger in person than you can imagine. So it just and that's kind of like the magic of indie film, because you have to be really flexible and but know what you need, and hopefully the universe provides, and in this case it did. And it just happened that way, that they're just all like great for the part, and like same with Jim and Mikkel, like just great for the part, and we just wanted to go with that. So yeah, and then you kind of like those visuals come up, and you start to learn to lean in on that as you're shooting it, and then figure out visually how to put them in the frame together, and you show that contrast. So that all kind of like comes as a piece. I kind of think of it as you kind of like roll with the punches a bit with indie filmmaking. So I mean, you certainly have an idea, and then you get punched in the face. So.
So Bao, I wanted to kind of go back to something that you said earlier, that you're a big comic book fan. I'm a huge comic book nerd. And so if you were to ever get an opportunity to adapt a comic book into a feature film, is there a character that you've always been a fan of that you would love to be able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I mean, I love, Frank Miller's run on Daredevil. Like that was, one of the huge lines of, storytelling that I really loved and appreciated. I haven't really kept up with all the adaptations. I hear the series was pretty faithful, but yeah, it's just stuff like that. I remember just growing up. I think it was more about also the type of graphics and the type of that frame storytelling that is just so specific to comics, and I just appreciate it as the art form itself. And it was not just the characters and heroes, which was great, and the archetypes, which is great, but also the way the panels and the layouts and the way your eye kind of wanders through the book. And I think that's like so beautiful to me. And I try to think about that, because there's a certain flow that you have in a comic or a graphic novel. There is a kind of a flow in movies that you have to think about to get the audience to kind of follow you on. So those are kind of the takeaways that I got. But I definitely kind of respect them as its own. Akira was awesome, and even just that pure black and white, most of the manga, was black and whites. And so we kind of feel the colors in our own head of what that is. So I think that's really fun and interesting too. I don't know if it flies as a movie, but just again, from a graphic point of view, it's just so beautiful. And I honestly wish people appreciate comics more, and just for that point of view, than just the characters and the universes, if you will, because the art itself is fantastic.
Yeah,
Bill
absolutely.
Sienkiewicz, amazing. Like you could rattle on for days. Like Bill Sienkiewicz, how do you do that into movies? You can't. Like it's so specific, right? So.
Yeah, that I couldn't agree anymore. I as a photographer was very inspired by the visuals of comic books, and I mean, even things that I think people would be really surprised by, but like comics influence fashion, they influence storytelling, writing, just every aspect of, I think, fine art has been inspired by comic books. So I'm definitely like encourage kids to pick up comic books. I mean, it helped my vocabulary, believe it or not. That's how I think I started reading, was being that little kid that every day my mom would take me to the 7-Eleven, I'd pick up a comic book, and I was reading, these fantastic stories that had, amazing, characters and language in it. And so it really helped me. So I'm a big fan of comic books as well. So I just wanted to get from one geek to maybe another. I find out how they inspired you.
I think you'll out-geek me, but yeah, I mean, I those things are so important to me. Also, just kind of the honestly, not to be hokey about it, but there's a real heroism of those certain type of stories, at least the stories that I was growing up with. A heroism with Superman and Batman and all those things before that type of cynicism kind of took over. And maybe that's a bit of a conversation for another day. But I just feel like there's a lot of like, yeah, I mean, superheroes are super for a reason, and there should be something to grasp onto for that, because they should be those type of shining lights.
Agree. So
Absolutely.
we are a pop culture podcast, and
all right.
So what are you currently binging or watching right now that's just like eating up a lot, if you have any spare time, eating up your spare time?
Binging, I can't say, because it's like I watch it. I have a queue, but I can't really sit and watch things in one go. Just the time is just, I don't know how everyone does it. Kudos to everyone, please. You keep us, keep putting food on our table, which is good.
Right.
But I don't know how you do it as a viewer. I don't. Last week I saw Reservation Dogs, which I really loved. I saw the pilot for that, and I think it's fantastic.
Awesome.
Taika Waititi is just a huge, inspiration as well. Kind of this modern day, fantastic storyteller, just blending all these different modes. But yeah, for Reservation Dogs is a lot of fun. I'm really excited to see what's next for that. I love Golden Girls. I still watch. Like if I have it on my queue, I just watch old episodes of Golden Girls. That's my jam. Bob's Burgers. I've been, really love Simpsons as well. Simpsons is one of the big influences for me as well on kind of the TV side or whatnot. And speaking of short storytelling, like that's when I really kind of learned to understand what shorts were. Those episodes, the really great episodes were really great short films essentially. And so yeah, I don't know, come an old head. If there's something new, a lot of people recommend me to see it, and I'll check it out. So
right on. We're both huge fans of The Simpsons, so we completely agree with you there. And they're just, I think, the perfect pop culture show because they incorporate everything into there. So yeah, I agree with you there. So I have it on good authority from one of your stars that you are a huge fan of karaoke. I won't ask you to sing.
Yeah. Fake news. Fake news.
Fake news. But what's your go-to song in karaoke?
Oh, don't worry about it. I got a whole concept now. My whole set list is just like I'm trying to do a whole 12-track, 13-track album, interspersed by my maybe side acts. I consider everyone else a side act when I'm waiting for my song.
Right.
I just wait for my stuff to come out. I don't know. I like to warm it up. Start something upbeat. So it can kind of vary on the mood, but again, kind of an old head. So maybe I like to start something that really actually gets everyone singing together. That way it kind of warms up my vocals as well.
Gotcha.
Kind of the lazy way. I like to do the lazy Vegas entertainer trick of just like, putting out the mic and like, hey, now you sing while you can rest and, have a sip of scotch while you're at it and just waiting. So that's what I do. I guess I'm a lazy concept album artist singer. Let's put it that way.
That's awesome. Now, I know for me, when I finish a project, I'm also a photographer, actor, whatever. But when I finish a project, I'm already thinking about the next 3 or 4 projects down the line. So with that being said, what's next for you? You have any projects that you could tell us anything about that you have down the pipeline that you see coming up for you? What's going on next?
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff, when, and you appreciate this, whether you're freelance world or freelance life or creative life, you always have to have a couple things in the fire because you never know which one kind of takes off. So
yeah,
definitely working on some ideas, working through some ideas on the feature side, TV side, even
right
some
on.
docs. I'm not usually a doc person, but I'm helping advise or chat with some other creators on a documentary. So again, just creating is really interesting to me, and just in any stories that are impactful. I think that's what I'm mostly interested in by. Yeah, hopefully we can kind of continue on. This movie took quite a while, quite a pound of flesh out of me to make, but hopefully it won't take as long, to make the next one. So hopefully we can get a film out for everybody to hopefully enjoy soon.
Right on. No, did you have something, Gabe?
Yeah, I was just gonna say congratulations on the success of the movie, and you being able to sign on to Netflix and see it in the top 10, one of the top films that's streaming right now on Netflix. How does that feel to see all that hard work finally come to be so widely recognized by fans and being celebrated?
It's fantastic, over the moon about all the reactions. It wasn't, didn't turn out the way we expected it, with COVID obviously and all those things. So it's just always been like every day has been, what's next, and we always have to like adjust and again roll with the punches. So we were just like so so focused on just promoting the film and getting it out there. We're still going out and touring the country with screenings and all that. So the work is still not done. So, but we do want to stop and smell the roses and enjoy. Yes, we're on Netflix, which is fantastic, and a lot of people are coming to it kind of cold in a lot of ways. And a lot of ways, we're at that point where we don't have to bug our friends to watch it anymore. Now, like people are kind of talking about it, which is always nice, you know. Imagine, because we did a Kickstarter, so we're like, even before the movie was made, you know, before the movie was released, you know, we were doing that begging and everyone please like us during Kickstarter as well. So there's been a whole energy for all that time. So it's kind of nice to kind of do a gear shift and at least enjoy and look at each other and appreciate, like, wow, look what we've been able to do, and also kind of watch it grow beyond our expectations. So yeah, it's been super cool, especially there, you know, an online, more kind of like virtual experience. You know, it's just kind of, we get, you know, this type of great feedback and comments from all over. So that's been really nice too.
I appreciate, as a fan, the way you take the time to interact with people on Twitter, and the way the rest of the cast does as well. They get in there and they're willing to comment, willing to, you know, just interact. And that's something that, you know, it's not as usual as you'd expect nowadays. But so I appreciate that.
Thank you. I paid for the unlimited plan just to do that. How did you discover the film? I'm just curious.
Myself, I was walking through, I think, Target one day, and I saw it there. Saw the DVD or Blu-ray, and I was like, "What is that?" Because I saw the picture on the cover, which, you know, and I was like, "Oh, I'm a formal martial artist. I took Taekwondo for 15 years, and then hadn't done it." So when I read the description of the movie, I was like, "Wow, this looks really great." And then I put it back down on the shelf and walked away. But then I said, I wonder if this movie's on like Redbox or something like that. So I looked it up there. Sure enough, it was there, and didn't get it. But then I saw it was on Netflix. It came, and I was like, okay, I'm watching it right now, and fell in love.
The universe has told you, yelled into your ear 3 times.
Exactly. And the third time I finally listened, and I'm so glad that I did, because I related to the characters in so many different ways, and it was just wonderful to see that. So I appreciate you telling that story, and I think it's really great in that I see a lot of people online are feeling the same way that I do. Maybe it's a lost art, martial art, that they got away from, that they're trying to get back into now, or maybe they're discovering what their goals in their youth were, and they're finally starting to try and relive them. So I think you've motivated a lot of us Gen X people to get back in there and try and relive what our youthful dreams were.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, what really attracted me to the movie, and which kind of really touched me about it, was being that I'm in my 40s. You know, I have to balance my life, my career, family, all of that, and seeing these like young up and coming, you know, whippersnappers, you know, biting at our feet, you know, thinking that they're bigger, faster, stronger than us. So I definitely relate to the characters, maybe being a little out of shape, and you know, wanting to take up that challenge from younger people. But and then, you know, reevaluating and reassessing where you're at, and saying, you know, what's important to me, what's at my core, you know, what were some of the promises that I made to myself as a young man, and what maybe I forgot about, and what can I go back to and still honor in my life. Because it's never too late to, you know, obviously within this story arc, it's never too late to go back to who you truly are. And I appreciate that story arc, and I appreciate the perspective from, you know, 3 men that are my age, and my so, you know, one of them being the same physical stature. So I appreciate that a lot. Yes.
That's awesome to hear. Thank you.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, chubby guys can still kick butt too.
Hell yeah, they can.
Right on.
There'll be a whole empowering movement, you know, from this movie. It'll just be a upswell of chubby guys, you know, kicking high and learning how to do all the flips and tricks. It'll be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I remember from like older Jackie Chan movies, like Wheels on Meals and stuff like that, where they had the heavier set guys doing the action movie. So to see it again and here was great. So I think that's fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been really fun to kind of see these guys. You know, Ron had gained weight for the role, and we were talking about, you were talking about the different contrasts of the characters. Ron, who plays Hing, was Husky. I think he gained a couple pounds. He gained a few pounds from Mulan. And then, but
Right.
still seeing Elaine next to him, like I asked him to gain more weight. So yeah, like in a span of like 6 weeks, he just started like kind of putting down the pounds.
He was binging a
and
different thing.
he was binging a different thing, and to make it, and it looks great now. Now I'm happy with the contrast. But yeah, it was a lot of work again for all the cast to kind of do. And then like even Ron is the most he's the most I would say he's the most experienced out of the three guys in terms of screen fighting and stuff like that. You've probably seen his face all around. He's, you know, a very well-known character actor. But you know, even that, but him gaining weight about, you know, a good, you know, a significant amount of weight, you move your body a little bit differently than what you're used to. And so he was even feeling that challenges, and you can kind of see that in the way he kind of like throws the kicks, and you know, you can see the actors kind of making those adjustments real time into seeing how their body is kind of do this choreography and stuff like that.
Right.
So yeah, it's like that's what I really you know, what we really kind of wanted to go for and appreciate was like how real that, you know, that type of these guys actually trying to move is, and what that actually means, and the whole ramifications of that.
Right. I did appreciate the authenticity of the fight scenes themselves. So it wasn't, and I think I read somewhere that you had to do that because you didn't have a big budget for like wire acts and stuff like that. But I think it led perfectly to the movie itself. I mean, it was authentic kung fu. It was something that a lot of people can relate to, and it's the ground game there and whatnot. And so I think you captured that perfectly. So.
Yeah, they did all their own stunts because we couldn't afford stunt doubles. Number one. number two, they really wanted to, and so that's kind of like what we want to go. And this kind of speaks to the indie film. Like, you know, we already knew it was going to be a big budget film, so you kind of want to come up with a story that, you know, kind of makes sense, and stuff that you could pull off in this world. And so it all kind of worked together in that sense. And yeah, like you say, wires, first of all, would have been out of the question for budget, but number two, it's just not the world that we have, and you know, it's not that. And I love and appreciate, like I said, just all that, the incredible history of wire work action. But you know, it's just, this is kind of a different flavor, though, different dish. You know, they were just cooking up this type of dish, and it just had its own particular needs and specifics and whatnot. And also like the type of action was, you know, meant to be a little bit sloppier, and these guys are, you know, not quite up to snuff, you know, in the film. And so how do we kind of like find those textures and elements? So in the same sense, we had to kind of like train ourselves when we were editing, is like look for the other takes that may not look great, but would be right for the film. So there's a couple takes where we would use where it's like the second best take or the third best take.
That's cool.
In terms of like technical, you know, in terms of like looking and everything being crisp and clean, because we wanted that roughness and that texture.
That's really cool. I didn't even think about that. That is really cool. It's a little tidbit you learned here on PopCultX.
Right here, only here.
Well, thank you very much, Bao, for spending some time with us today. We really, really appreciate it. We're huge fans of your work, huge fans of Paper Tigers. I look forward to espousing it to everyone. I told my dad, who's been in Taekwondo for many more years than I stayed with it. He loved the movie. So it is a generational, like you said, it goes beyond just one generational. It crosses all boundaries. So thank you again so very much for taking some time to talk with us today. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great chatting with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
So for that, we will be signing off, and thank you again, everyone, for watching Little Talks with PopCultX. I'm glad that we actually both got together to be able to interview Bao as well and have that conversation. I know we've done a lot of interviews with different people, but we always seem to be, one of us does it, the other one's busy or whatnot. But this time we were both able to get in there. And I think he had so much, it was great to hear so much insight into his perspective on filmmaking and what inspired him, where he derives his style from. And I think it was just fantastic conversation. I really enjoyed it. So I thank you again, Bao, for taking the time to talk with us here at PopCultX.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, congratulations to him, because the film is fantastic. It's really getting a lot of great reception. As many people know, like it was, one of the top 10 Netflix films that was out, so really popular. A lot of people are watching it. I think that one of the cool things is the intersection between like the hip hop or like African American community and the Asian community that's seen. That dynamic is seen within the movie, and you certainly see that like one of the biggest fans of kung fu movies are or is the African American community. Like famously, like Wu-Tang Clan grew up watching kung fu movies, and that's how they got their name for their group. And so I think it's cool that someone who has a background such as ours, that we have pulled from a lot of different influences, and then to create something that has all of that is a unique experience, but at the same time, like we can relate to it because we're like that. We have,
right.
He talked about having influences from comic books, which I was really surprised at and happy to hear about, music and film. And so it was a really cool interview. I'm really glad that I was able to sit in and participate in that. And I definitely recommend watching the movie for anyone who hasn't seen it. Watch it again. I was just talking to my dad on my drive home from work and saying like, you have to watch this. And he's like, oh, is that the one that's like about a bunch of old guys that start? And I was like, well, Dad, it's kind of relative because the old guys are my age. So from your perspective, they're young.
They're young guys.
they're babies.
Right. I think just to go back real quick, what you said about him enjoying comic books, he also mentioned enjoying manga and how he liked the black and white manga. And one of his short films that he had done, the bookie, is all in black and white. So I didn't get the chance to talk to him about that, but when he said that, I was picturing that movie, and there's some fight scenes where blood splatters and stuff, and in my head painted the blood red. So it was pretty cool how he talked about how our heads or our minds color in the black and white images that we see. So I just thought that was a really neat little tidbit there.
Yeah, there's actually a couple comics that are doing that right now. So like there's Batman, that it's like black and white, Superman red, white, and blue, and it's like basically black and white, but there's splashes of color. Or like Wolverine, I think there's Wolverine red, and it's like bloods and red, but no other colors. Like it's just that one specific color. So it's really cool because it's so strong graphically. Like in photography, I love things that are really like high contrast. My eye is just like really attracted to that, of like even like over exaggerated contrast. So I love things that are in black and white, or have that super high contrast. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that. I think it'd be cool if they start, people start going back and like making some black and white films, not necessarily like 1940s black and white, but like highly stylized, where
kind of like Sin City.
There's a lot of
in a way.
Sin City, yeah, and he mentioned Robert Rodriguez was one of his influences for like guerrilla filmmaking, which is I was glad to hear, because like
me too.
Robert Rodriguez is I'm a big fan of his, and he's definitely has that DIY attitude. Like, you want to make films, start making a film. Like he used his credit card to like rack up some debt and buy a camera and just started doing it, famously. And he still makes movies that are like, he famously can make movies that are really great on a low budget, which is like ka-ching for studios. They're like, let's hire Robert Rodriguez because he's not going to ask for the most amount of money and then still put out a great product. Like, that's really great. He's working on a project I forgot that is kind of exciting. I want to say that he just inked a deal with HBO Max. And so I think something is coming out cool for Robert Rodriguez. I always kind of keep an ear out for what's going on, because I love all of his films.
I know he was doing some like online film school thing or something like that, and like I think it was YouTube or something where people could sign up and just get motivated and just to learn the art of filmmaking. So yeah, I'm a really big fan of Robert Rodriguez as well. I mean, from like Planet Terror to like El Mariachi and Desperado and oh yeah, those are fantastic films. I mean, I'll even say Spy Kids is all right, but
yeah. There's another one that he did with kids that are like superheroes that was really good. And he's used, he has like, I think there's a formula that he does that is interesting, that he is very good with kids. Like, he knows how to make them and not be like annoying and not you know, like roll your eyes, God, that kid's so stupid, they're doing something really dumb. Like he still lets them be childlike, but like in a smart way, which I always like respect, because I hate when directors make kids like complete idiots, where it's just like,
yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Steven Spielberg.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up for this episode. So thank you all again. Hope you enjoy this special episode, and we will catch you all next week.
Take care. Stay safe, everyone.